The legal case launched by former Formula One driver Felipe Massa against the sport's governing authorities and commercial rights holders poses a serious challenge to the finality of the 2008 World Championship. At the heart of the dispute lies the dramatic outcome of that season, when Lewis Hamilton captured his first world title by a single point ahead of Massa. That razor-thin margin is the foundation of Massa's claim, as the points lost during one particular event, the Singapore Grand Prix, could have completely changed the destiny of the championship. In the final round at Interlagos, Hamilton famously overtook on the last corner of the final lap to secure fifth place, just enough to claim the title. That single moment of triumph for Hamilton, and heartbreak for Massa, has now become the central symbol of how narrowly the 2008 crown was decided. Massa's lawsuit, filed in London's High Court, targets the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, FIA, Formula One Management, FLM, and former F1 CEO Bernie Ecclestone. The Brazilian driver is seeking approximately $82 million in damages, alleging that key figures within Formula One intentionally covered up the truth behind the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, ultimately costing him the World Championship. His legal team argues that both the FIA and FOM failed in their duty of care, claiming that they possessed critical information about the incident during the season but chose to withhold it, thereby breaching their responsibilities. The case is being closely observed, as it could test how far the law is willing to go in reopening long-settled sporting results. The foundation of this entire legal battle is the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, an event later infamously known as Crashgate. During that race, Renault driver Nelson Piquet Jr. deliberately crashed his car into the barriers on lap 14 at turn 17, following direct orders from team principal Flavio Briatore and chief engineer Pat Simons. The calculated crash was designed to trigger a safety car period, strategically benefiting Piquet's teammate Fernando Alonso, who had pitted moments earlier. The deployment of the safety car flipped the race on its head. Alonso moved to the front, while Massa, who had been leading comfortably, was forced to pit. In the chaos of that pit stop, Ferrari released Massa's car with the fuel hose still attached, resulting in a drive-through penalty. The error dropped him to 13th place, outside the points, a catastrophic blow that ultimately determined the championship. The 1-point gap between Hamilton and Massa at the end of the season can be traced directly to that race. Massa's legal representatives argue that, under FIA regulations, the Singapore Grand Prix should have been annulled once the deliberate manipulation was discovered, a move that would have made Massa the rightful 2008 world champion. The Crashgate scandal officially came to light in 2009, leading to severe punishments for Renault, the team's suspension from Formula One and lifetime bans for Briatore and Simons. However, the FIA chose not to void the race results, citing the long-standing rule that championship standings become final once the end-of-season awards ceremony takes place. This principle of finality now stands at the very core of Massa's challenge. His lawyers assert that the FIA and FLM already knew about the deliberate crash during the 2008 season, yet decided to remain silent, thereby compromising the integrity of the championship. The case gained renewed momentum in 2023, following a public interview with Bernie Ecclestone, in which he openly admitted that both he and former FIA President Max Mosley were aware of the manipulated crash at the time, but chose not to act to avoid scandal. Ecclestone's public remarks became the cornerstone of Felipe Massa's legal argument, providing the basis for his lawyers to claim that new evidence had surfaced, strong enough to challenge the long-standing finality of the 2008 championship results. Massa's legal team asserts that the FIA violated its own regulations, particularly those requiring the immediate investigation of major incidents, by failing to act upon critical information they already possessed. This omission, they argue, represents both a breach of contract and a failure in the duty of care owed to the competitors. According to Massa's representatives, the governing bodies and certain individuals conspired to suppress the truth, directly influencing not only the outcome of the World Championship but also Massa's career trajectory. Importantly, the lawsuit does not target any of the drivers involved in the 2008 title fight, but rather the institutions and their former leaders who allegedly participated in the cover-up. In response, Formula One, the FIA and Bernie Ecclestone have mounted a firm defense, urging the court to dismiss the case before it proceeds to a full trial. Their central argument hinges on the claim being time-barred, that the legal window to contest the 2008 results has long since closed. They maintain that the principle of finality in championship standings is essential to preserving the integrity and historical continuity of the sport. Allowing such a case to advance, they argue, could set a dangerous precedent, encouraging future attempts to rewrite sporting history. A pivotal 3-day hearing took place in late 2025, where both sides delivered detailed submissions on whether the case should move forward. The defendants pushed for immediate dismissal, while Massa's counsel countered that fraud and concealment invalidate any statute of limitations. The presiding judge has since reserved judgment, leaving the sport in suspense. The decision, whether to dismiss or proceed, will determine the future of Massa's challenge. Though Lewis Hamilton is not named as a defendant, the implications of the case directly touch his first world title, as any alteration to the 2008 standings would inevitably affect his record. Still, Massa's lawsuit focuses solely on the alleged misconduct of the sport's governing authorities, not Hamilton's driving or behavior. The defendants emphasize that reopening the championship would undermine the authority of the FIA and destabilize the entire governance structure of Formula One. The forthcoming ruling will decide whether the challenge advances to a full trial, a stage that would require the disclosure of confidential documents and internal communications from 2008 and 2009, potentially unveiling how decisions were made during the Crashgate scandal's aftermath. At its core, this case tests whether the legal framework of international sport can accommodate a claim of historic fraud. Massa's team seeks up to $82 million in damages, representing lost income, sponsorships, and the prestige denied to him by not being crowned world champion. This figure reflects the economic gap between a title winner and a runner-up, a difference that, according to Massa, reshaped his legacy and career value. The entire Formula One community now waits as the court deliberates, a decision that could reshape not only the historical record but also how the sport defines justice, integrity, and closure. A ruling in Massa's favor could open a new legal pathway for revisiting past championships tainted by deception. A dismissal, on the other hand, would cement the principle of finality, closing the door on any future attempts to rewrite Formula One's past. Either way, the verdict will become a landmark moment, one that decides whether history in Formula One is set in stone or forever open to challenge. When Bernie Ecclestone spoke publicly in 2023, few could imagine the earthquake his words would unleash. In a simple interview, the former Formula One Supremo admitted something extraordinary, that both he and then FIA President Max Mosley knew about the 2008 Singapore scandal while that season was still unfolding. For Felipe Massa and his legal team, those words were not just gossip, they were a detonator, the missing link that could reopen a 15-year-old wound in the heart of Formula One. Ecclestone's admission became the cornerstone of Massa's legal crusade, a bold, unprecedented attempt to challenge the finality of a world championship that was decided by a single point. Massa's lawyers argue that new evidence has surfaced, evidence strong enough to question the very legitimacy of Lewis Hamilton's first title. At the center of the storm lies the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, forever remembered as Crashgate. A race manipulated from the shadows, where Nelson Piquet Jr. deliberately crashed his Renault into the wall on lap 14, under the orders of team principal Flavio Briatore and chief engineer Pat Simons. The crash triggered a safety car, perfectly timed to benefit Piquet's teammate, Fernando Alonso, who had pitted moments earlier. While the Renault rose through the chaos to win, Felipe Massa's Ferrari fell apart. Leading comfortably, the Brazilian pitted under the safety car, only for his team to make a fatal mistake. They released him with the fuel hose still attached, a blunder that cost him the race, the points, and ultimately, the world championship. That one race, that single manipulated event, changed everything. Massa would lose the 2008 title by a solitary point. And for over a decade, that result was considered untouchable, final, closed. But now, that illusion of finality is under siege. Massa's legal team, armed with Ecclestone's 2023 confession, claims that both the FIA and Formula One management breached their own regulations by failing to investigate a known act of race manipulation at the time. Under FIA rules, any credible evidence of deliberate misconduct demands immediate investigation, something that, according to Massa's lawyers, never happened. Their argument is clear. The sport's leadership knew the truth and chose silence over justice. By concealing that information, they breached their duty of care to every competitor on the grid, and robbed Massa of the title he rightfully earned. The claim, filed in London's High Court, targets not the drivers, but the institutions themselves, the FIA, Formula One management, and Bernie Ecclestone personally. Massa's team seeks $82 million in damages, representing lost prize money, sponsorship deals, and the career opportunities denied to a man who should have been crowned world champion. They call it not just a case of lost income, but of stolen legacy. But Formula One, the FIA, and Ecclestone have mounted an equally fierce defense. They insist the lawsuit should never reach trial, arguing that the claim is time-barred, filed long after the legal deadline to contest the 2008 results. Their lawyers maintain that the principle of finality, the idea that championship results are untouchable after the official prize-giving ceremony, is essential to preserving the integrity of the sport. To reopen that chapter, they warn, would be to open Pandora's box, inviting endless challenges to past championships and destabilizing Formula One's very foundation. Still, Massa's side argues that fraud changes everything. They contend that the concealment of critical information invalidates any time limit, because one cannot invoke finality when the truth was deliberately hidden. In late 2025, both sides faced off in a tense, three-day hearing in London. It wasn't yet the trial, it was the battle to decide if a trial would even happen. Inside the courtroom, every argument echoed far beyond those walls. The sport itself was on trial, its governance, its ethics, its sense of justice. The judge has since reserved judgment, leaving the case in limbo. The next ruling will decide everything, whether Massa's claim is dismissed forever, or whether the door to a full trial, and potentially a rewritten chapter of F1 history, swings open. It's important to note, Lewis Hamilton is not a defendant. The case does not accuse him of wrongdoing, nor does it challenge his conduct. But the implications are impossible to ignore. Should the court side with Massa, the ripple effects would reach directly into Hamilton's record, into the archives of Formula One itself. If Massa wins, it would set a historic precedent, establishing that even decades-old championships could be legally revisited if evidence of fraud or concealment emerges. It would also force Formula One to confront one of its deepest philosophical questions. Is sporting history absolute, or can truth rewrite it? If the court dismisses the case, however, it would reinforce the sanctity of finality, ensuring that once the trophies are awarded, history remains untouched, no matter what revelations come later. As the motorsport world waits, tension builds. Behind closed doors, teams, drivers, and fans debate what justice truly means in a sport built on both competition and controversy. For Massa, this is not just a legal fight, it's a personal crusade for recognition, dignity, and truth. He is no longer battling Hamilton, nor Ferrari's errors, nor fate itself. He is confronting the very machinery of Formula One. And as the judge's decision looms, one thing is certain. Whatever the outcome, the Massa lawsuit will echo through the paddocks of Formula One for generations to come, as the moment when the past refused to stay buried.